So, welcome back, my dear friends. This is Shilpa. Of having like a radiant self, because that is very important for every woman. And now, as we are coming here in the plenary session 2, please let me share with you that we have with us like a beautiful panel. And before introducing them, I would like to tell you that in this particular session we are going to talk about reconfiguring gender solutions, economic and social empowerment, because this is very important, especially when we are talking about a woman. Because if a woman is economically empowered, then simultaneously she is going to be empowered socially, and at the same time she is going to empower her future generation, the people associated with her, and ultimately will be making this society a better place to live in. So my dear friends, in this session we are going to explore all those aspects related to social and economical development, social and economical empowerment of women, as far as we are considering the gender solutions. So let's initiate. Let me please introduce you to the esteemed panelists. Firstly, we have with us the President and COO of Edelgive Foundation, Ms. Naghma Mulla. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having us here.
Yeah, so we can actually have the virtual claps for her because we have got the emoticons over here. So you can use those virtual claps and welcome her. Yeah,
Thank
very
you.
good.
Thank you.
Okay, and we also have with us the COO of Sehgal Foundation, Ms. Anjali Makhija. Most welcome, ma'am. And ma'am, you have to got to unmute yourself.
Thank you so
Welcome,
much.
ma'am. And also, yeah, loud and
Yes,
clear,
can you hear
ma'am.
me? Thank
We
you.
also have with us the founder and CEO of Aspire for Her Foundation, Ms. Madhura DasGupta Sinha. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yeah, and as I can see, Ms. Shaili Chopra has not joined us yet, but she'll be joining us soon. And she is the founder of SheThePeople TV. So this is going to be actually an interesting television channel or the digital platform, I feel. So somehow we should go and check out that. So she'll be joining us soon. Oh, she is here.
I'm
Shaili
right here.
Chopra,
Yeah.
welcome.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, welcome.
Thanks. It's good to be here.
And my dear friends, to deal with all these beautiful ladies, we have a man, because I always say that it's not just like she should always stand for her. Now it's the time that he should stand for her. So we have that he with us, and he is going to be the moderator of this session, the founder and host of CEO's Chairs, Mr. Siddharth Vaze. Welcome, sir. Please have a huge round of applause for him. And
Thank you
along
so
with
much,
this
Shilpa.
virtual and some of my real claps, we have Mr. Siddharth over here, and I am going to hand over this entire platform to him, this entire session to him. And I know with this session, we are going to have a lot of powerful and knowledgeable insights from you beautiful people. So, Siddharth, sir, over to you.
Thank you so much, Shilpa, for the warm welcome. And a very warm welcome to our audience, as well as the incredible panelists, all of them very, very successful women in their own right. Today, like Shilpa mentioned, we are discussing reconfiguring gender solutions, economic and social empowerment. In the interest of time, I'd like to encourage all of our panelists to keep your responses concise so that we could have a lively discussion and ensure adequate time towards the end for audience participation and questions as well. Shaili, if we may, I'd love to start with you. Despite being just 10% of the workforce, globally, more women than men have lost their jobs last year. You're someone who's gone from working in media to building your own media company. In your opinion, what are the roles of the various stakeholders in ensuring a gender-sensitive recovery from COVID-19, and who has the biggest burden?
Thanks very much. That's packed a lot of questions. I'll try and break that down. Who has the biggest burden? I would say the burden truly lies on women right now, because they're the ones suffering from not having the opportunities back at their hands at a time that COVID has led to this critical breakdown of the global economy. And even as the recovery starts to happen, We continue to see hesitance in terms of organizations taking on women back into their roles, most importantly, creating more opportunities. So I would say partially or unequivocally, in the sense the role of what women are going through today, the impact of that is very skewed towards men, and it's against women. So that's one part of it. I think another part of this conversation has a lot to do with how COVID has been used as an opportunity by organizations to get rid of people. And in that getting rid of people, they've kept market economics as the foresight. As they do that and remove a large number of female worker populations, what's left behind is a scenario where they are making no change to their approach to bring people back, because the only priority for them is market economics and profitability. Now, do I blame organizations for that? I partially do, because I believe that when organizations are undergoing challenges, women do step up to lead in ways that a lot of the times men in the leadership positions don't. So the way, the sort of unequal impact of COVID on women has played out is likely to play out even more as fewer organizations are hiring women who are pregnant, hiring women with children, with little children, hiring women with commitments to family, hiring women with other, sort of various other challenges that women are going through, without paying any attention to the fact that these women are also going through an environment which is devastating, just as it is for on the women's economy that needs to be looked at. That you talked about 10% of the global population. I mean, just look at India. We've dropped 10 percentage points from a 35% to a close to 25%. And the economic toll of COVID has been extremely significant, because women tend to earn less, they have fewer savings, and it makes it much harder for them in the informal economy to make a comeback.
Absolutely. And some powerful thoughts to start off the conversation, Shaili. Thank you so much. Anjali, I'd like to come over to you as someone who spent over 25 years in rural development and women empowerment. And like Shaili said, collaboration and working together seems to be the key. What are your thoughts on collaboration of women working together, organizations working together across sectors? Do you think that will lead to a faster recovery?
Yes, I think it's very important, specifically in rural areas. The challenges are not very different. Of course, women are burdened with domestic chores, because especially in the agriculture area, and they have lost their livelihoods. The agriculture produce has kind of decreased, and demand for produce has decreased, and there are no alternate livelihoods. So the challenges are very specific. Many men have lost their jobs. There is reverse migration, and there is so much of pressure on land and water specifically. Water is something which women deal day to day in rural areas. They are majorly responsible for now fetching more water in terms of for sanitation and hygiene. In terms of education, again, there is a big digital divide. Girls are not able to go to school. They are not able to even access digital devices for education. They don't own mobiles. So there is considerable backlog which has to be cleared. I think it will be a Herculean effort for all the organizations to come together. And I think in rural areas, very important for the implementing partners and for the grant maker organizations to have multi-sectoral and concerted initiatives which specifically cater to women, their livelihoods, their education, water, skills, and health. Specifically, the government has a big role to play, because now vaccination has started, and there are so many myths. There is lack of information about COVID, and of course the vaccination, in the rural areas, things like, vaccination leads to infertility and all. So a lot of collaboration between government and civil society organizations, and they need to be trained to have sector specific initiatives for women. And at Sehgal Foundation also we cater to all these specific programs related to agriculture, water, education for girls, community participation. This needs to be,
of course, Anjali,
addressed in a very integrated manner.
Thank you, Anjali. I couldn't agree more. And I'd like to come over to you, Madhura.
Yeah, Siddharth, over to you.
Yeah. Thank you. So, Madhura, it might seem a little, hypocritical or kind of a dichotomy that here we are talking about gender parity for women and men across the world, while there are a lot of women across the world that are also struggling for basics, like Anjali mentioned. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Okay. So now you're somebody who's been a career banker, and you've gone from being a career banker to being the founder of a non-profit organization. And according to some recent data from the World Bank, only 14% of the entrepreneurs in India are women. I understand there's a very interesting report that you put out very recently about the unique socioeconomic challenges that women face during the pandemic, and of course, in their return to work as well. I'd love for you to share some data points from that report as well.
Thank you, Siddharth, and thank you for having me on this very distinguished panel. I represent Aspire for Her as its founder and CEO. We are just a one-year-old organization, and we are motivating women to enter and stay in the workforce. What's been our finding of the past 1 year? Actually, it's been a fascinating journey. My last 1 year has been professionally and personally more fulfilling than the last 25 years in banking. I think I can stand up and say that. We had the privilege of publishing our first ever research report, and we worked 6 long months on it just to understand the world of women at work in India. So we're calling this report series Women at Work. And obviously, 2020 being the year that it was, we looked at the impact of COVID on working women in India. I think Shaili touched a little bit on it, but just to get the statistics out of the way, as far as the global gender gap index goes, in terms of economic empowerment and participation, India ranks 4th from the bottom of a list of 153 countries. That's the 149th list. The country just above us is Saudi Arabia. After the COVID, the 20% sort of participation rate of women has actually dipped below that. And we found some stark realities in our report. And maybe I'll talk about just a couple of them. The first being that women in entrepreneurship bore the worst brunt of all demographics, even among working women. This is because of scarcity of resources, scarcity of time, and the fact that 70% of women in India are solopreneurs or nanopreneurs, having very small teams and just barely making do. The second piece for women in corporate, and I really like what Shaili talked about, was that women in mid-career actually found it very difficult to manage the competing priorities on her time during the pandemic. And this is really sad, because these are women who have gone past the normal hurdles that one thinks about of marriage, motherhood, childcare, etc. And they have spent a good 15, 20 years in the workforce. And these are the people who are now being compelled to exit the workforce and give up their economic agency. So these are some of the findings. I would love to talk more. And Aspire for Her is really motivated to change the diversity equation of India. And that's what we're going to talk about.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Madhura. We'd love to hear some more data points, and I'm sure I'll be able to come back to you as well. Naghma, good morning, and sorry to have kept you waiting for so long.
Not at all. No, it's a pleasure hearing everyone speak here. Lots of wisdom. Yes.
So Naghma, you have a very some statistics are concerned, I was just looking it up recently, and according to the ET, statistics, there is only one women CEO in India in the top 50 companies as far as the Nifty 50 is concerned. So my question to you is that what are some of the
No, so yeah, I'll bring a lot of the observations that I have and also some of the experience that and thank you for your kind words. Yes, we have in Edelgive, in fact, not only a very high percentage of women, almost 90%. That feminism does not mean women, women in powerful positions alone. Feminism means a space of equality where men and women can speak equally without fear and bear the pros and cons of it in an equal position. I think what worked really well is the DNA of the workplace that I am in is the kind where we speak to the acumen and talent of the person and not to the gender that they bring. And that, I think, is such a fundamental core, and I cannot take credit for it, honestly. I think all organizations, when built, this is a DNA that has to be put in place at the core of the value system of an organization, and that comes from the founders. So there I must credit what Edelweiss gifted to us and what Vidya has kind of established at the center. Once that happens, and when people in workforces are secure that what they bring to the table is valued more than the gender, then you see talent really grow. Also because of what we see outside and how difficult it is most of the times for women to voice their views, voice their opinions, and also climb up the ladder. When you create a space which includes a woman, which also provides for her problems, whether it is children who are ill or maids who don't come or anything, where these kind of things are not looked as excuses to not work, but are really looked at, okay, it's a bad day, it's a bad hour, and then now what do we do around it? When you establish these are invisible, cultural, it's in the air. When you provide for that, you see people performing at levels that you can only imagine people do. I think that's the core of the strength that Edelgive has. I've experienced it as a woman myself, and I hope that we've been able to imbibe it in our. And I think this is the golden rule for all organizations at all sizes.
Absolutely. And I think those are some brilliant words, Naghma, and in all the conversations that I've had across corporates and across founders, I don't think women are looking for special treatment, or I don't think women are looking for, something different. All they're looking for is equal opportunity.
Yeah.
And whether it's equal opportunity in the workplace or understanding beyond the workplace.
Absolutely.
And the commitment that you'll receive is probably tenfold in return.
Absolutely, because they've not they're striving for it but not expecting it. I mean, you give them the gift of voice and of a space where they can perform to their potential. I would say tenfold is a limiting number. The of an individual who is allowed to do or to work to their advantage is just unparalleled. And I just keep getting puzzled why when we know this, we still don't have it more commonly around enough.
No, and I'd love to take this over to Shaili. And we talk about preconceived biases and we talk about preconceived notions. Shaili is somebody who worked in media and now has built her own media company and her own media platform. I believe we still have Shaili here. Yeah. So yeah. Shaili, my question to you would be that, like we said, that we're looking for the right person for the right job, regardless of gender. And one of the biggest challenges that women entrepreneurs face globally is access to funding. So I'd love for you to be able to share maybe some personal stories or anecdotes, and how you were able to overcome that, which could probably act as inspiration for other women entrepreneurs.
Hi, thanks very much. So I hear you when you say that women are not looking for special treatment, but I think there's certainly one thing that women are looking for is a significant amount of course correction. I feel in this entire conversation and discussion around the world about how women are now looking for an equal space is sort of misinterpreted by making the assumption now we need to just move to equality because the world is equal. Actually, the world is not equal. We have gone through centuries of, a very male-dominated space, whether it's in jobs, whether it's in roles, whether it's in films, across the board. So I think first point is, while most women want that when they are in a job, they are, sort of gauged on merit. But I should add that world is not so black and white. And that's why we need a significant amount of correction in the kind of approach we have towards promotions of women, or sponsoring of women across the corporate ladder, or looking at investing in women. The problem, for example, has been, according to me, and I'm an observer from the outside, I have been deeply disappointed by the investment community, because the investment community goes out there, and this is seeing women who are creating products, seeing women who are creating manufacturing businesses, and those who are in services. For most of the people who are investing, their lens of what they want to seek from that investment is the one where the problems arise. It's not whether they are looking to, let's say, save certain money parked for women. The point is that when you look at deliverables that are just as usual as any other companies, you forget that massive critical mass of women and men who are working towards issues that solve problems that are of a different nature. So whether it's men or women working in women-centered startups, I hear this from both of them, that investors constantly want a delivery model, and that's definitely going to get 10x, investment. You say the term AI, and investors are going to, be happier than listening to social impact, social entrepreneurship. The fact that some organizations have set up investor forums focused on social impact should not absolve general investment networks to look at these platforms with equal interest. So I have personally been extremely disappointed looking at the approach of most networks and what they use as their measuring stick when it comes to investing in women. Some organizations around the world have finally stood up to the importance of investing separately, consciously, creating a separate fund. And I underscore the term separate, because general is broadly equal to a male-centered fund. So they've had to create specific funds. Recently, I think yesterday, Let's Venture, run by Shanti Mohan, has also created a women-centered, investment in early stage fund, and many others. I've also seen some get wrapped up because not enough investors were backing it. Why should women's investment be backed only by women's investment? My proudest moment was when SheThePeople went out to look for investment. Anand Mahindra stood behind me, said, Shaili, here are the funds, go out there and create what is needed to make, women as the central piece of what you're trying to do. So I have had great opportunities with some men, but I don't see this being propagated by many other men in the industry, whether it's corporate, whether it's the investment space. I think the change will only happen when we start recognizing that in our quest to be equal from day one, we are forgetting there's a lot of correction to be done. Let's correct the numbers. Let's correct the statistics. Let's correct the access to opportunities before we go out there and say, oh, women want an equal playing field. The playing field has been unequal. Why don't we wake up and see that? And I think that's problematic.
No, and I think I couldn't agree with you more, Shaili. In addition to holding the investment funds and, of course, the men that run a lot of the investment funds accountable, do you have any more thoughts on how women-led startups could also seek funding?
So I think today there are hybrid models. I personally often advise this to a lot of women because SheThePeople runs India's largest women entrepreneurship network through the Digital Women Summit. Now, one of the reasons why this is such a popular space year after year for the last 6 years is because women are able to recognize that you don't have to always go raise funds. That's number one. Secondly, I think it's very important to not move away from your idea. So if your idea is something that is not fitting a VC, or is not fitting a private equity, don't go to them. Go out there to those who are, let's say, an agricultural focused fund, if your product is, let's say, linkages of farmers into markets. Go to funds that are talking about bringing social impact, social change. And I'm saying that this is the process until the time that more generic funds start recognizing the importance of investing in women. How often have I heard young women come and say, I went to the investor, he said, just change your business model. Standard problem with most women. So I think the way to go about it is, first, when you're building your startup, don't believe in the idea of just getting funded. People are building things by just buying and selling. Once your proof of concept happens, much easier to get funds, much easier to get attention. Second is, of course, I think definitely go across to funds that are making women a priority. Women in India don't have enough access to such funds yet, but hopefully they will have it. And third, there are many prizes around the world, many awards for women entrepreneurs. I never underestimate the power of these prizes and what they can do for women in their effort to raise funds and get recognition. So I would just say that.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Shaili. And I can tell how passionate you are about the topic by by some of the insights that you bring to the table. Anjali, coming over to you, raising funds for a non-profit is very different for raising funds for a for-profit organization. Have some of your experiences been similar when you've gone out to corporates or you've gone out to some of these grant-making agencies and seeking funds for example, the Sehgal Foundation? And how have you overcome that?
So see, actually in Sehgal Foundation, our main funding organization is Sehgal Family Foundation. So we have a common board. Now that is very, very important because right from our main donor, we have a gender policy in place across the organization, and gender equity, women empowerment, integrating women programs is the key organization. They don't ask for gender specific budgets, and they are normally not so bothered. They would like to have an agriculture focused program or a water focused program, but it's very important to sensitize them that these programs are very specific, and that is why they are part of the programs of Sehgal Foundation. So I think very lucky that especially related to women and water, because as I said earlier, water is a key issue in rural areas. In some states, availability of water is the key. So we have done a lot of projects on harvesting water, and participation of women is the key. In specifically certain areas, we work with the panchayats or we work with the development committees. Women never used to come together and participate in these development committees. Has to have a very proactive role to seek their 50% participation in these committees so that they are involved in the planning stage, the monitoring stage, the implementation stage across all states, and also the sustainability aspects. So water, and again in agriculture, for example, we have a broad program on agriculture, but we work with funders and we work with grant making organizations to again sensitize them that we need to specifically work with women farmers. Women are not recognized as areas. All the decisions are taken by their male counterparts. In panchayats, we have reservation of women. We have a 50% reservation or 33% reservation in certain states. But again, all decisions are taken by the male members of the family. So the participation of women in the development of the village is kind of something which we really need to actively and proactively call for. We have to call for collective action. And we, as a part of our community engagement program, we work with the grant makers and the funding organizations and sensitize them. Similarly, our Transform Lives One School at a Time program, where we work with, again, children on digital awareness. That's a big program, and a lot of funding organizations are interested in dividing their digital gap. But again, it's a Herculean task for providing those mobile services to the women and the girls. So we have those specific programs which we have to take 3 steps ahead. We have to increase specific programs, specific initiatives, specific approaches and strategies to bring women to the forefront. And we have been lucky that that kind of sensitization is very forthcoming by our grant making organizations, by our partners in CSR, and over the years it has really impacted the women in rural areas.
Faster than any of us can keep up. And we consistently have new reports from the World Economic Forum that talk about the new skills that are required to succeed in the new normal, so to speak. In the report, and of course in the work that you do, what are some of the skills that you think, and let's not just talk about women, but let's talk about everyone in general, will require moving forward to succeed in their professional careers?
Thank you for the question, Siddharth. And I think this is probably the right opportunity for me to talk a little bit about what we are trying to do and how the new skills sort of, meld into that. And first of all, I think thank you, Shaili, for bringing about some excellent points in terms of what is really wrong with women trying to raise investments. It is a real problem. And thank you for shining the light on that. Very, very eloquently put. At Aspire for Her, we're just 1 year old, so we're still very young. At Aspire for Her, we are trying to change the mindsets of women so that they follow amazing careers, so that they enter and stay in the workforce. Our dream is to have additionally 1 million women in the workforce by 2025. So how are we doing that? The 5-point mindset change model goes as follows. We look at 5 things. We look at mentors and role models, and we have more than 100 women who have come to our platform who are giving back in the form of mentors and role models by doing 1:1 mentorship sessions with young women who have never been exposed to anybody else other than their mothers, teachers, professors, and so on and so forth. So this is a woman who's coming forward with no other agenda other than your own professional progress. The second pillar we work on is learning opportunities. And that, Siddharth, talks a little bit to the skills that you mentioned, because we want these women to stand out among a sea of applicants. So these learning partners that we have, IBM, Cisco, VMware, LinkedIn, and edX, are people who are bringing in fantastic courses to women all over our community, all free of cost, so that they can get validated credentials and can actually go one step closer to their dream jobs. The third pillar that we work on is career previews, because here we are actually trying to sell the concept of having a great career. And there is an alternative, as all of us know. And we have very interesting women leaders who come and regale us with their own journeys, their own stories, their own mistakes every week, to talk about different sorts of career options, right from sports to, bakery, to, of course, the more conventional ones like technology and investment banking. We've had very interesting folks who came in. In fact, in the last session that we had a young lady by the name of Naveli Nanda, who is, who runs a healthcare portal called Ara Health and is doing some excellent work. Really the face of shining India, young entrepreneurs, young women entrepreneurs. The fourth pillar that we work on is building an amazing peer community. And this is a safe space where anyone can ask any question. And this peer community will connect with each other. And they will ensure that when people are at crossroads in terms of their professional and personal choices, the community will creatively show them the right way. Because we cannot be there at every person's every step of the way, and the community will step in and do that. The power of online communities and networks is something that we strongly believe in. And in fact, the next network that we are launching on 15th of March is the Return to Work community, where we are welcoming all women who have either lost their jobs due to COVID or who are taking a break or have put their career plans on hold to come in and be a part of Aspire for Her. The last and fifth pillar that we work on is the 3E model. 3E stands for employment, entrepreneurship, or higher education. And we have excellent partners across all of these three spaces to ensure that all the women who are in our community are forever in 3E. And that will define what success looks like for us. So, Siddharth, a slightly longish answer to a short question. And the other two big skills that we look at is perseverance and resilience. Perseverance, as we all know, is the ability to stick on even in the face of adversities. And resilience is the ability to bounce back. So we love talking about these two skills and try to also sort of build these two life skills in all the women of our community.
That's incredible. And it seems to be a really, really well thought through model, Madhura. So kudos to you and your team for that. Before I go back over to Naghma, we have over 100 people that have joined us in the audience. And I'd request all of them, or if some of them have any questions for these four dynamic, successful women, I doubt that you'll have another forum where you'll be able to get to ask them questions. So and I'll be sure to connect you with the right person. So Naghma, coming over to you. And I might be opening a bit of a Pandora's box with this question, but we'll go for it anyway. Every session that I've attended or moderated or that I've heard about, women and gender parity and gender equality always talks about the mentoring and the training of women and what they need to do differently and what they need to do better. And I, as a man, would like to wonder that what is expected of the men to do differently. On the gender parity situation that we have.
Thank you for your question. And if we were here in person, I would have shaken your hand for this, because I think while I really do agree that women have to be, there has to be some amount of capacity building of women, because they are in very competitive environments and there are opportunities, and there are too many missed opportunities because the system has been built by men for men. I repeat this again and again. We are living with systems that were crafted, designed around convenience and desires and ambitions of men, largely for men in the system. And so women find it extremely stressful to navigate it for very obvious reasons. But when we also, so while that kind of capacity building is very, very important, I would say we cannot ignore the ecosystem that she is being, put in. And there, I say men, really important. You have to take men along. But there are many ecosystem players. Everything from the place of employment where she is, which I was referring to above, where the employer is responsible to create a space where she can perform. The industries are responsible to create a system where sourcing, in fact, if even it's sourcing of supplies or something like that, is there a way in which we can source from women-led businesses? Because like Shaili rightly said, you have to give them a leg up for opportunity so that they start entering. I mean, before we get into that equal space, governments have to play their part. Pro-women policies that are not just good documents, but are also implemented with gust and rigor. Very, very important. Experts, academia. I mean, it has to be a force where multiple stakeholders play their part. And it's not as big as, it seems, because if we just break it down and say, all right, this is what responsible stakeholdership looked like, then we all have a role to play. Now, coming down to the men in the room for it, of course, there has to be an environment that they are responsible to create for her as well. While we keep saying that we have to train women and change mindsets, and that is very important, I keep going back to, there are so many brilliant women with great ideas, with great acumen, with desire to work 2 times, 3 times more than normal people, who are just not given their opportunities, whose voices are taken away from them. And men have a large role to play for it, to back her up, to stand with her. And that environment cannot be created by women alone, because the game is skewed. And to come to a place where we can have a society that gives her an equal space, men have to play a very, very strong part as men at home, sons, fathers, brothers, men at work, colleagues, peers, juniors, seniors, men in governments, men in academia, everywhere. I mean, men have to take a lot of responsibility for where we are today for us to get anywhere better tomorrow.
Very well said, Naghma. And I think it reminds me of a very favorite saying that my father talks to me about it often, saying that don't do as I say, do as I do. And I think you brought up a very valid point that men in leadership positions, whether they're at home or in the workplace, really need to walk the talk consistently and over a long period of time to really make a dent in the gender parity. I would call it a problem.
Absolutely.
To continue. I think probably audience members haven't really had their coffee yet, so we don't have a lot of questions. So maybe just some final thoughts. I'd like to start with you, Naghma. Some final thoughts for all the women and the men in the audience about where we are and what we can do differently to get to where we want to be.
So I think we are not in as bad a place than we were about 2-3 decades ago. And I'm very, very happy about it. Why am I saying that? Are we in a better place? Do we have better rights? Do we have better safety? I don't think so. What I mean is that at least now the noise has begun to come. There are enough women, and we are seeing these women here on panels. I mean, what Shaili spoke so passionately of is very valid. As a woman who wants to establish her business, yes, these are real pain points. What Madhura was speaking about is really valid. And similarly, we have a lot of this noise that is coming up, and I say all noise is good noise, because there's a lot of course correction that we have to do going forward. So are we better than we were before? Yes, because we're getting our points of views out there. We are getting, but this noise will have to come to reasonability, and the responsibility belongs to all of us. I see this play out again in 2-3 ways. Those of us who are aspiring to do something and are in the blind, and who need mentors and who need guidance on how to do certain things, who need products such as Only Women funds, or or an ecosystem that helps them. But I place a lot of responsibility on men and women in positions of power. Women who have broken glass ceilings, men who are already there, to create systems within their homes, within their offices, within their neighborhoods that provide for an environment where a woman can bloom, or where a woman can play to her strengths, is our joint responsibility. And we cannot wait for an NGO or a policy to do this. We will have to take the onus as individuals, so that we can also hold the governments and people accountable around us. But a little bit of soul searching is very important, because I see so many times that we keep talking about feminism and pro-woman work, whereas most of our homes itself are embedded in patriarchy. Well, and sometimes we just don't even recognize it. So a bit of soul searching, a lot of action, and a lot of course correction for the future is what I would leave the panel with as thoughts.
Absolutely, and thank you so much for your thoughts, Naghma. Madhura, I'd like to come to you, and I believe that there's actually a question from the audience that talks about a lack of a platform or a lack of a database where manufacturing industries can look for women that are qualified in specific roles, whether they are shop floor roles or supervisory roles. What are your thoughts on that? And does a platform like this exist, or do you know somebody that would want to build it?
So we are building a platform, and we do have a platform. But let me take the specific question of manufacturing roles. And all other roles which typically have underrepresentation of women. So what we're telling organizations is that, when they want to look at mid-career women, they start just looking out and saying, hey, where is the talent pool? Okay, why is it so shallow? I can't find anyone. And I think that is what, our esteemed member is also trying to say here, that I don't find the right women. Why are we not finding them? It's because they have reached a certain level and they have just left, or they have not entered at all. especially for the manufacturing sector, I'm sure it's both an entry-level problem and a growth problem. So what we're telling organizations is start early, have a slightly longer term view, and actually try to build that talent pool. And let's build it together. We are happy to build it with you. Talk about the various roles that you have. Talk about the various exciting career journeys that you can offer to the young women, and start as early as 18, maybe even 16 years old, to build that ambition, to build that aspiration to join the industry. Now, if anything, and we all know that we all go by, what our peers tell us, and we all go by what we see around us. So if we try to create a stream of nudges and triggers around, say, the manufacturing industry and why it's an exciting place to be in today in India, because there are so many good things happening, I'm sure more and more girls will be motivated to enter. So it's a slightly longer term solution, but that's the only way out in our opinion. You cannot just pluck people from a different industry or look at the generally shallow talent pool and say, oh, hey, let me just scrape the bottom of this barrel to get talent, diverse talent from here. It doesn't work that way. More work has to be put in, and we are happy to partner with you to do that.
No, and I think you bring up a very relevant point, that one of the reasons why a long-term solution will work for the manufacturing industry, Madhura, is because we have a lot of legacy employees as well that would love to have their second or even their third generation work in the same companies that they've been working their entire lives. And what better validation can you have, either for an organization or for a colleague, that are validating that I would want somebody from my own family to work in the same company as well.
And a couple of companies are doing brilliant work. In fact, Tata Steel brought out a little ad some time back, and it was a post, one of my friends posted. She's the head of HR in Tata Steel, about a bunch of women in engineering who have just started off on the shop floor, again, from their local community. Mahindra Tractors brought out a brilliant ad some time back about a woman driving a tractor. It went viral on this Women's Day. So there are manufacturing companies, I think, doing amazing work. It's just that their stories are not talked.
Anjali, coming to you, I believe that there's a question from Sunita. You're somebody that has risen to the top of your organization and the foundation that you run. According to you, what are some of the factors, or maybe let's just say the top 2 factors that hinder women to rise to top positions in organizations? I think you're on mute, Anjali.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so of course, in the non-profit sector is becoming more and more professional. You have so many legislations, you have so many compliances, and for example, I am the CEO of my organization. I sign the balance sheet, but I should know, I'm not from a commerce background, but I should know what goes into the, making of a balance sheet. So I think so far women were focused only in issues related to women. So a very soft skills, but they need to have a diversification of their skills to rise to the top. I think that is very, very important, and that is one of the factors which need to be built on. Skill set has to be built on to rise at that position. So that is one of the specific factors, enhancing and broadening the skill set of women at the leadership position. The second is, of course, specifically women who are working in rural areas, people at the mid-level, for example. So they also, it's very important for them to also, push the gender policies at the village level. So it's very important. It's at the top level, but leadership at the village level is, I think, very important. And earlier, we were not having people who have worked in rural areas to join the, position at the office or the core team level or rise up the ladder. So it's very important to enhance their education. Education is very important. A few years back, we did not have, the education skill set, and the education range was very, limited. So that's one of the areas where we try to boost the women to increase their education qualifications, so that is something which broadens your vision. I think education broadens your vision. It broadens your analytical skills. It broadens your connectivity with the outside world. So education is something which is very, very important going into professional qualifications. Those are the key areas. And one thing which I have experienced is that it's so many people, when you are dealing with the male colleagues, even at the government level, or, with the male counterparts who are coming from that, patriarchal background, they feel very comfortable to talk to a male. When I go to a government office, they would rather, be happy to talk to a male head rather than talking to me. So it's very important to change the mindset of the government and the non-government space also, because they are not sensitized to this whole concept of a woman rising up to that level. And this is also specific to certain geographies or certain states, certain communities. So a lot of, we have to grapple with a lot of factors to do. And the last point, which I think it's very important, is that at all places, it's important to start at the family level. I see women who have risen even in corporate world, even in non-corporate world, even in NGO world. They have the same domestic responsibilities even at home. So that burden has to be shared, and that sensitization with the partners, with the male in rural and urban, I see all across. So this change of gender stereotypes, that a woman has to have, is responsible for a basket of responsibilities at home, those dynamics have to change. And I think the young generation, the adolescents, young men and women, are very open to this. And I think this has to start from the adolescent, and that's a long way to go. Yeah,
I couldn't agree with you more, Anjali. And speaking of having qualifications and also having the confidence to talk about them. So, Shaili, I've saved you for the last, because I know that gives us the confidence that you'll be ending the panel discussion on a high. What are maybe one or two things that you'd like to leave the panelists as well as the audience members with? Some of your thoughts, please.
Okay, thanks very much. I just think that the last words can't be spoken on an issue like ours, because it's such an ongoing issue, constantly in the flow, that requires reiteration, rethinking, reworking, and re-energizing the need for all of us to recognize what it is to go out there, speak up, stand up, and do something about how women can, let's say, take themselves to the next level. But I think for me, there are a couple of very important things. One is that I feel that our entire debate on gender equality is going to fall flat if we don't first empower women financially. Financial independence, according to me, is the first step towards any form of gender equality, because it brings power. And only yesterday I was talking to the internal senior management at NTPC, and I think many of them were very amused when I said money is power, and just as men find it so, women will find it too. And that'll sort of energize them into confident women leading and making their own decisions. If we can get them to earn their money, however little, however that role is, whatever that role is. Second, I think, with that financial independence in place, it's also an answer to how women can find skills, because they're very interlinked. And, some of the members on this panel are working in that direction. Today, there is no skill that women can't take up. And this ranges from the women on the shop floor of Tata Steel to the women flying over the North Pole in Air India, and to those who want to sit at home, close themselves in a door, and do stuff, on the internet. So there is a great deal of opportunities. And I say this again and again. I left a very interesting role at a mainstream media channel to go digital, simply because I saw what digital does to women. It creates opportunities facing the kind of challenges we all face, the realities of what women face are not going to go off with the switch of a button. They're here to stay. The stereotypes are not going to go away. Till today in 2021, we're talking about stereotypes because they exist. So I think we as a society have to really do many things in parallel when it comes to women. And hopefully not have this debate. Why are you guys still talking about feminism? When are we talking about equalism? I'm not talking about equalism till 237 more years when women are paid equal to men across the world. I'm not. I'm talking about feminism until that moment.
I think you have stunned us into silence, Shaili.
Have I finished my answer too early?
Stunned into silence.
No, I'm sorry. I forgot to put it off mute. Yes. No, but thank you for that high energy summary, Shaili. Absolutely. Like you said, there are a lot of issues that still need to be addressed, and let's keep the conversation going. Thank you to the UN Global Compact Network India, as well as the 4th Gender Equality Summit for giving us this platform to keep the conversations going as well. And thank you to all of you ladies for the work that you do every day and for taking the time to come together on this panel and to answer the questions. So enjoy the rest of your week. And once again, thank you for coming on board this panel and for sharing your thoughts. All the best to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir, for such a good session. And all the ladies have come up with really meaningful things. And I think ये जो हमारा पूरा society है, we have contributed a bit towards the transformation that we are looking forward to. And as we have started, so बात शुरू हुई है तो दूर तक जरूर जाएगी. तो आप सभी लोगों का बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया. Thank you so much for joining us in this session. And now we are going to have a special session on advancing diversity and gender inclusion. But before that, again, we have to do the same drill. We have to go to the reception area, and then from reception area, we'll be entering this next session. Siddharth sir, thank you so much. You have moderated it so well. Thank you
very
so
much,
sir, for joining.
Look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you.
Sure, sir. So my dear participants, let's go back to the reception area and just come back in the next session, which is a special session, and I'll be introducing you again, like to the other panelists and what all we are going to discuss over there. For now, thank you so much.